All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm hoping that a colleague can keep an eye on the lobby and admit anybody else. Right, well, if you have come here expecting Tikit Training Tuesday, then you're in the right place. So welcome. If you're expecting something else, then I'm afraid it's too late. You're stuck here. It would be rude to leave now. But hopefully you are here to expect Tikit Training Tuesday. This is our weekly informal training session for all of our customers. Each week we pick a topic and we kind of jam on it. Some weeks are more prep than others. Some of my colleagues prep more than others. And this week has been a little bit busy. So I've got some good ideas. I haven't necessarily flushed them all out yet. So it's going to be maybe a little wild ride. Also, I have no idea how long this will take, the content I want to get through. So I think it could be a tight on time. So let's get rolling. Very simple agenda as always. Welcome is pretty much done. Welcome again. Hello. I think we've covered that off now. Housekeeping, just to mention that the sessions are recorded and available on YouTube later. But if you do want to ask questions throughout, then please feel free to use the chat. Come off mute, interrupt me. That's always fine. I might park it till the end if it's not super relevant to the topic, but we'll make sure that all questions get answered. Mostly demo today. I've got basically one more slide back on use cases just to kind of bring us home. And then we'll definitely make sure, as I say, there's time for all questions to be answered. Oh yeah, this is me. I'm Jeff, fan of brightly colored shirts, ITSM processes, and Power Platform. As I said on the call, I recognize lots of names, which is always awesome to see. But if you don't know me, then it's very nice to meet you. And yeah, if you want to get to know me more or talk more about Tikit, then I'm always here. And that pretty much takes us on to the demo. So let's get stuck into that. All right, so I'm showing my screen. So if a colleague or anybody give me a little wave to make sure you can see my screen. Thank you. We're good to go. So I'm going to move the little Teams thing out of the way already because I'm doing a lot of tab flipping around today. So today we're talking about Power Automate tasks. So these sessions, I've got a hand up. Is there a question? Or I'm just going to keep talking if not. Okay. We've talked a lot about Power Automate in these sessions, and we have covered Power Automate tasks as well, but kind of got a fresh look on things. But not just Power Automate, but specifically Power Automate tasks, and what that really means within Tikit. We might all be familiar with this kind of very simple, this example, of course, but you might have some sort of flows like this using our when a ticket is created trigger. So in Power Automate, we're saying run this flow when a ticket is created. And this is you've got some filters on this, by the way. So in this case, you can see I'm only running when I'm using the template facilities ticket. So it won't trigger on every ticket created. And I can use a combination of these criteria. So you can see other ones as well to only trigger on certain ones. And it'll trigger when those tickets are created. And I can do anything I want within Power Automate. In this case, I'm actually creating a group chat with the requester of that ticket, the person that started it, and Melissa Allen, who in my fictional environment here is my facilities team member, creating a group chat with the title of that ticket ID so they can chat about whatever that might be. So there's a great use case. Every time there's a ticket that meets this criteria, go and do this action. So that's a Power Automate flow using the ticket connector, but it's not tied to a Power Automate task. This is going to run, as I say, on the creation of every ticket that meets the criteria, but at the creation when we meet when the ticket is first opened. And if those of you who play with our Power Automate connector will see that there's a secondary trigger called when a ticket is updated. So that'll fire when it's modified to meet this new criteria. So you can do that kind of stuff as well. But if we're looking at a ticket like this, and here I've got ticket for software request, and I've got a life cycle going on here with this ticket. It's this multi-phase business process that I need to step through in order to fulfill this ticket. And I may only want automation to fire at certain points of the life cycle. I do not want it to fire straight away. I only want it to go once we get to the relevant bit, due to some prerequisite, something that has to happen first. A very typical use case is going to be an approval. As you can see here, my first phase is IT approval, where it's going for approval. My second phase is to deploy the software in this case. I may want to run something that does that deployment or sets up for it, but I only want to run that after the approval has been approved. So I wouldn't use the when a ticket is created, because that's going to fire straight away. I want it to run as part of this phase, and that's where we can use a Power Automate task. And then you'd use a flow that looks a bit like this. So this time you can see I'm using this trigger when a lifecycle PA task becomes active. Bit of a mouthful. When a lifecycle PA task becomes active. So this means that when that task becomes active, so when we get through this first phase into this second phase where that PA task lives, once that phase becomes active, then the PA task becomes active, that will run the flow. So only at that point. And again, in this case, I'm doing something different. I'm creating a team called new team. Very original idea there. Do something, but only going to do that when I get to that point in the flow. This is not necessarily tied to the software request idea. This is the idea of just when I get to a certain point, go and do something. So that's a couple of kind of out the gate examples. We're going to go and build one from scratch and see how we can get on. And what we're going to see is I think there's two groups of use cases for PA tasks, two fundamental reasons why you'd want to use one. And I love it to be wrong and someone come up with a third solution, but I think everything else kind of falls into one of these two buckets. We're either automating the flow of the ticket or we're automating the fulfillment of the ticket. We're either controlling the ticket in some way, we're controlling who approves it or what tasks need doing or don't need doing. We're controlling who can see the ticket or what priority is the ticket. Anyhow, we're controlling the ticket itself, the flow of the ticket, or we're automating the fulfillment of the ticket by actually doing something. Creating a team was that example we just gave, deploying software in some way in this example, whatever it might be. So we're either doing the flow of the ticket or the fulfillment of the ticket. And I'm going to do a new example now from scratch with both, just for fun. So let's get going. I'm going straight into templates. We're going to create a new template for my process to add user to a team. So I want my user to add a request to add someone to a team and a member of staff to a team. Okay, very quick recap on templates. We can set any of the properties we want to template as part of this ticket when the ticket gets created. So I'm going to just template things like the ticket type is going to be a request. The category is going to be permissions. I'm not going to pick anything else there at this stage. When we do next, we get to choose the form. I'm going to create a form from scratch. And clicking OK kicks us into our form designer here. So very quickly, we'll drag a couple of elements on this. So first, we're going to create a add user to team form, give it like a heading. And then I need a people picker so that they can choose the user that's going to be selected. Add. Just to keep us a little bit simpler and make sure that's a single selection, but you could, of course, do multiple. And Then I'm going to do a input choice set, a drop down, or select the team to add them to. There we go. And of course, those of you that know what you're doing will know that every input must have a unique ID as seen by these validation errors. The title has an ID field, the text block has an ID field. You can set that, it might help you with your form management. It's not mandatory, but any input field where we're asking users to provide data, we need that ID. And that's for a number of reasons. Well, one reason, but it's all kind of spans out. It's basically we need that identifier in order to store and reference that piece of information. So that's useful for reporting. That's useful in automation, which we're going to see. That's useful just for kind of tracking where the data is kept. So in this one, I'm going to call it user to add. These IDs, they must be all one word, no spaces or characters are allowed. I think it can have numbers, but can't start with a number. I could be wrong on that. Somebody might jump in the chat and correct me. But certainly it can't have spaces or any special characters. So typically people use this sort of proper case or camel case to make it a bit more readable across multiple words. So that's going to be user to add, and this one is going to be team to add to. There we go. For the choices of my team, I'm going to use a feature that's not particularly used. It's actually a really good use case for it. And I see this, I get this question a lot when I'm building templates for customers, is why in the sort of these pre-filled examples, I have choice one and choice one again. And often people want to like fill in their things, so they might do team one, team two, and sort of like that. And that's not how this is intended to go. And in fact, these pre-filled answers that Microsoft give us on this adaptive card designer is a little bit unhelpful. And if you just click add new choice, it does help explain what's going on here. And you'll see that the placeholders, if these fields are empty, is title and value. So one drop-down option can have a title and a value if you want to use it. Now, if you're not doing any automation, then you probably don't need to worry about that. And you can just put the same thing across both. So in that case, you would do team one, team two, team two, and that would be fine. But because we are doing some automation, there's something very cool we can do here. We can put the name of the team in here in the title and the ID of the team, the Entra ID of that in the value. Because when we see it through the UI, we'll see this title, this field. When we look at it through the sort of back end, through the automation, we'll get through those IDs. And we're going to go and add the user to that team. It's going to make that a little bit easier. Say I'm doing a lookup, any kind of match. So that's a cool little feature. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got my Entra open. So I'm going to just add HR. Where are we? Sorry, we're here in Tikit. So HR and the ID of that. And I'm just going to do two. I'm going to do performance management. Just going to do two to keep us a little bit simple here. Get rid of that one. But you can see how you could build it up and make more. Okay, that is my form. What's not got a unique ID? Oh, I put that on the wrong thing. Add user to add should be the ID on the people picker. There we go. That's what's getting the error. I told you some people found it hard. Right, let's save that template and there it there it is, alphabetical. Okay, so we also need to make our life cycle. So let's whiz into life cycles, add a new life cycle. It's not always the case, but it's sort of 99% of the case that you have a kind of one-to-one templated life cycle. So using the same name, or at least a kind of similar name, is going to help you know what goes with what. So that's a good little naming convention. When this resolves, we will set it to resolved by lifecycle, user added to team. Okay, so now we're going to build out our phases. Again, we'll keep it as simple as example, but our first phase is going to be set up approvers. Our next phase is going to be approvals. Approvals, single aurelia. And our third phase is going to be fulfillment. So in this first phase, we're going to have the Power Automate task that actually sets up the approver dynamically. That's automated flow. It's actually adjusting dynamically how this ticket goes. Then we'll have the actual approval. Then we'll have the fulfillment, which is going to add that user to that team to automate the fulfillment of that ticket. So in our first one, we're going to add a flow. So the way this works, when you use these Power Automate tasks, when you're building your life cycle, you just ask for a title and you're not quite sure what's been here. And the truth is it actually doesn't matter. Now you want to give it a sensible name, of course, but you're going to give it a name here and you're going to reference it later on and match up. So you can actually call it anything here, but I strongly suggest you give it a sensible name, but you don't need to match anything at this point. We're going to select it later on. So we are going to do, let's call it add user to team setup approvals. Approval. There we go. And that's done. That's all that phase needs. Our second phase needs an approval. Approve adding user to team. I'm going to leave the approvers blank because that first phase, the Power Automate task in the first phase is going to do that for us. Because we don't know who the approver is going to be, we don't know which team the user is going to pick. And our approver needs to depend on which team is selected. And our third phase, again, in one Power Automate task, fulfillment. Okay, so there's our life cycle, and it's pretty much a shell of a life cycle. There's not a lot going on here because it's going to be largely dynamic. So let's save that. And the final step we need to do is to come back, add that life cycle to the template. Now, once you know what you're doing, you can start to build your life cycles first and sort of save this step. But I find my brain works better this way. Okay, so that's our template and our life cycle set up. And now we need to build our flows to work there. So let's come back. We're going to build a new flow. And we're looking for that trigger that when a lifecycle PA task becomes active. We need to team a role. Create. So you see, on this trigger, we're selecting the lifecycle, the phase, and the PA task that we want to tie back to it. So we can call things what we like in our lifecycle, and then now's when we make that connection. So I'm going to pick my lifecycle. Oh, great, it's not connected. That's a bit of fun. I'm in the right environment. Come on. There we go. Right. My add users team lifecycle. My my setup approvers phase. These will not necessarily be in the order, they'll be in alphabetical order, so watch out for that. And there will appear the name of the PA task that I typed in. So the name I give it there doesn't matter. I then need to select the correct one here. And obviously you may have multiple PA tasks in one phase. That's why we let you go this granular. Okay, so that's going to do our trigger. So that's going to trigger when we get to that point in our life cycle. And because that's the first one, it's going to go straight away, of course. All right, something else that is very important when you work in PA task is you must control the status yourself. So I'm going to straight away update a PA task. I'm going to pick the task that's caused us to trigger. And I'm going to set the status to in progress. The reason we do this is so you've got full control over that status, particularly when it comes to error handling. You may want to set things to failed or cancelled, and that's why we let you control this status yourself. You need to make sure you're at least set to succeeded or failed by the end in order to transition to the next phase. So it is important you do this. You don't have to set it to in progress at the start. It's a nice touch. You do need to set it to something at the end, otherwise it will sit without a status forever. Right, I'm going to get rolling because time's flying. So update the PA task. Then we need to pass the JSON of the card that the user filled in. So we are going to pick the answer JSON. Why is that not? Oh, I need to get the ticket, of course. I need to do something first. I need to get the whole ticket. Get ticket. So this just gets me the PA task. I need to get the whole ticket. I do get the ID from it. And then I can pass the JSON of the answer JSON. And now we do need a schema. I've got some pre-prepared. But they're very easy to generate. You can either generate one with a sample payload, or you just need to understand that it's going to be an object, and then it's going to have a number of properties, and each of these are your IDs of those input fields. So do you remember I had used to add and selected team? No, I didn't. I called it something else actually. I called it team to add to, didn't I? I gave it the wrong name. Let's double check I'm in the right place. Otherwise we'll have problems later on. So it's user to add. And team to add to. Okay, great. And in this case, they're both going to be a string. Although that's a user picker, it does return a string. Okay, so that's our answer pass. And now we can actually pull out this team. And now we are going to do a switch on that value, the team to add to. Because if it's one thing, we're going to have one approver. If it's a different thing, we have a different approver. So here's where we're going to use our values. So there's office management, copy. I can call this office management to help me make this more readable. And my other one is going to be HR. And then in each of these, I can then dynamically set the approver on that ticket. So before I get into the switch, actually, I'm going to get the approval. Get the approval. So from the ticket ID I've been passed, which is, where was get ticket? Let's put it from that. And we want to specify the lifecycle phase and approval title. And then we can, again, in this case, I've only got one approval, but you may have multiple and you want to pick the correct one. So it's from the add user to team, from the approvals phase. And again, things on here, lifecycle, we call that approval this. So that's the title of the approval. So that's what I need to get. Let's go in this approval title, and now it's going to find that exact one approval object in case I've got more than one. And now I've got it, I can, in each of these cases, set the approver, update the approval. And the approval ID is going to be the approval ID from the get approvals. And what happens when you do that is it jumps into for each, because this can return more than one. So it has to loop through those. I'm not going to get into it today. We're very tight on time already. There could be a more efficient way to do that, but this will work. And then we're going to set the approvers to, and let's just, for sake of time, grab the first user here, Melissa. Let's say Melissa looks after office management. I'm going to do a cheeky little copy and paste. And here, we'll pick a different user.
I think you just put ticket ID and approval ID.
Oh, thank you very much. I did do that. We should be good. Yeah, it's happy. And that's going to then add that user as the approver on that ticket. And then lastly, we do need to update the PA task one more time and set the status to succeeded. I've run out of time really here, so I'm not going to get to the second example. I will see about maybe doing another video or another session, whatever we want, but let's see if we can get this piece of it working. So we're going to go, and again, I've not even got time to make a service item, so I'm just going to go straight to tickets, add a ticket, apply my template, and use it to team. And I will put the answers in now. So I'm going to pick Susan. Is that working? Claire, and I'm going to add her to office management. And the requester. And oh, I've got to filter all my tickets and clear all that. Let's see what we're going to get in a few seconds here. It's set the flow to in progress. I'm going to go for a refresh here. I'm going to jump over to here and see where we go. There was a mention saying you should test it. I didn't get a chance. Oh, it did work, succeeded. So let's look at what it did. It ran through all that. In the switch case, it went down this path and skipped the HR because we picked office management. And it should have added Melissa as the approver. And sure enough, it did. If we'd have filled this out, we'd have skipped to the last bit where we would have got the user. Hasn't filled in for some reason there, and actually added them to the team as well. Yeah, sorry, I was slightly concerned that we were going to run over. Let me just wrap up here, as I said, with my heading here. I ran out of time with the slides as well. Heading here, subheading if needed. These are my two takeaways I want you to remember. We can automate the flow of the ticket, or we can automate the fulfillment of the ticket, both using Power Automate tasks. I'm going to hang out for any questions. Appreciate everyone's time. So if you need to drop, obviously, please do. The recording will be available later. And if you want to ask me a question, but you don't, and you need to drop now, then obviously then reach out help@sargent.com is the best place to get help. I'll say thank you very much, and I will just hang on for 2 minutes if there's any questions. Yeah, Tressa, I appreciate we didn't get to cover it. So let me look at the schedule. We always have to be flexible with that. So let's see if we can do a part 2. If not, I'll just record it and make it available somewhere. So yes, we will get it to you. So follow our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn, best place to get the updates. And we'll somehow get that out.
Thank you.
Not a problem. I think as well, maybe Justin, you could follow up directly with regards to the other question as well.
Yep.
All right, I think we're good. Thanks again, everyone. See you next time.